what do our supporters think? Like, what are people thinking behind the scenes? What do they think of us? What do they think of the things we do? What do they think of the way we use their donations? Like, that's been a really big push on my part this year, and will definitely continue into next year, is just talking to our supporters, communicating with them, learning more about them so we can make sure that they're like satisfied with the work we're doing and they're happy with what how they feel about us. Like, I like talking to donors and calling them and to say thank you. Like, I think that's a really important thing to do, and something, yeah, we've been pushing behind the scenes to kind of get like all board members and volunteers and development and membership, like kind of all of us in on it, because in those really casual conversations, sometimes like you hear the nicest things. Like, you learn the nicest things. Like, you learn more about our supporters and why they care about our cause and why they like our mission. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's just special. Like, that story aspect. Like, I think that's one of my favorite parts of the job, is connecting with people and learning more about like who they are and what they care about and what they value, especially here at like an environmental organization. We are very mission driven. And I would say each and every one of us is very, very passionate about what we do. And so are our supporters. And it's so nice to like connect over that. Yeah, I don't know, just like those casual little conversations, or even when I sent out like the donor survey earlier this year, like we did get a lot of constructive criticism and constructive feedback, which I was really grateful for, because if people are taking the time to like fill in a
Yeah.
survey, and people take the time to send an email to us, that means they care.
Yeah.
Which is so great, like so lovely and so reaffirming to like feel that at Sierra Club Canada. Like, apathy is the emotion we don't want. Like, apathy is something we're not
Yeah.
here for in this environmental movement. But like, people taking the time to write into us, people taking the time to call us, people taking the time to fill out surveys or just interact with us in any sort of way, it means that they care about us. They care about the work we do, and they want us to be better. Like,
I cannot recount the number of times I've heard people say, I don't like the big NGOs. I don't like, and I have a lot of respect for the work other big national NGOs work. I don't like the big NGOs, they're not connected to the ground. They don't really talk to communities. They come in and they have this big, plan for how things are going to be. And then on the other hand, oh, the number of people who've said, oh, there's all these local initiatives to try and make change, but we're not chatting to each other. Like, how do I even make change in my community? Because I don't know what the path is. Well, that's the benefit of having a national organization with a grassroots focus, right? Because we can actually go and we can go to another NGO at the national level and say, hey, we have a grassroots team over here working on this. Seems like they could do with overlap with your national campaign that you're doing. Let's get you in the room together chatting. Oh, listen, there's this massive national movement that's about to start up. But there's something wrong here. This isn't the same as the thing we hear on the ground. And I can't even recount to you, again, the number of times I've been in that inter-organizational meeting and I've been like, sorry, I think that the idea of where you want to go with this, very well meaning, but this is not the way people talk about this in that community. And the only reason we know that is we're both, right? And the
yeah.
only reason we can help, like bring the environmental again movement together and focus the efforts is because we're both. And if we were just one or the other, or we said to ourselves, well, we're getting rid of the grassroots component, we're checking it out, we're just going with national or vice versa, we wouldn't be as strong and we wouldn't
Mhm.
be filling that void because that is a real void. And it's funny that like it is hard for people to understand, I think, conceptually why that structure is the way it is. Um, but at the same time, if you think about it in terms of the common complaints you get about the environmental movement, one way or the other, it's too hyper focused on local issues and nobody's chatting to each other, everybody's fighting. Or, it's too national and it's too big plan and nobody's listening to the communities on the ground. Well, that's the void we fill, right?
Yeah.
That's the reason we're there. And I think most of our members that I chat to really do get that, right? Like they seem to have like a good conception of why that's important. And it is unique. I don't know of another organization that does that, honestly. There are organizations that have chapters. I don't know of another organization that does that sort of work in the same way. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Environment in Canada podcast, a podcast about the environment in Canada by Sierra Club Canada. I'm Connor Curtis, your podcast host and head of communications at Sierra Club Canada, and today's episode is with Taylor Farrugia. And Taylor does a huge amount of work getting our fundraising materials out, and it's Giving Tuesday. So we thought a behind the scenes look at what fundraising looks like would be of interest to you. And we're also going to answer some common questions we get about Sierra Club Canada and some common questions I get at the communications department as well. So please check out the podcast. Take a listen to what Taylor has to say. If you're feeling like giving to Sierra Club Canada this year, you can do so at sierraclub.ca. We'll have the link to the donation page in the description. But even if you're unsure, go to the website, check out our work, get a sense for what we do and why it's important, and go visit our staff page on our board page and check out our team and get a feeling for who's actually working here. And that's really the goal because there's a lot of organizations fundraising today. There's a lot of work going into it, and it's work that often doesn't get seen. It's the behind the scenes stuff. And at the end of the day, we're the charitable sector. Without donations, we just don't exist. And if you want or like any of the things us or our organizations are doing, this is one way to just see how that all works. Now, you can get the Environment in Canada podcast pretty much wherever you want to get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube. But you could also check it out on the Harbingen Media Network, which is a cool network of podcasts that we're a part of. And you should check out CKUT Radio, who broadcast this podcast at 11 a.m. bi-weekly on Tuesdays. That's 90.3 FM. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this chat with Taylor. And if you have any questions, let us know. So I'm sitting there with all, and we're doing the interview. This is for the nuclear waste dump uh,
Yeah,
podcast that's actually going to come out next week or next Tuesday. And the snowplow comes past, and it was super loud. And I stopped recording. I'm like, we're gonna have to stop and waiting. And the snowplow comes past, and afterwards I'm editing the recording. There was nothing there. It was just me going. So we're gonna have to stop and wait, and then silence for like 2 minutes.
nice.
Like nothing. So yeah, no, it zooms pretty good actually for cutting out background noise.
Cool.
But anyway, do you want to just jump in? Shall I ask my
Yeah,
first question?
go for it.
So Taylor, for those tuning in, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, I'm the development manager for Sierra Club Canada. So I manage our fundraising efforts, and that kind of includes reaching out to supporters, creating fundraising materials, and managing our database in a nutshell.
And, I get a chance to work with you, and so I have a different perspective on this probably than the public does. But I think sometimes people look at fundraising, which is a major part of your job, and it's almost like they think of it as like a bad word, right? Like I see that sometimes on social media, like, of course you're going to ask me for a donation at some point, or and like, yeah, we're a charity. Of course we're going to ask you for a donation at some point. Um, and I think a lot of that is ultimately fueled by, misinformation from the same sort of corporations we often stand up to, who have vilified, the charitable and activist sector that does stand up to them, which I find a bit ironic given that Canada's richest 100 CEOs now make like 210 times more than the average worker. But at the same time, and sorry for the significant preamble here, there's a lot of demand for the work we do at Sierra Club Canada, so much we literally can't get to everything. And the things we can do at Sierra Club Canada, we do with a very small team, I think, compared to a lot of other national organizations. And we can't do anything we do without you, Taylor, because without fundraising, we can't exist. Um, and so, from people I talk to about our fundraising materials, they tend to think we have this massive fundraising department that's operating because they see your emailers. Um, and they're really well done. And I have to explain, no, it's just Taylor. So, like help people out here and help us understand, what is a normal week's worth of work for you? What does that week look like?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you. That's, that's so nice to hear. Oh gosh. Yeah. It really depends on the week, but like you mentioned, like I do create quite a lot of like fundraising materials and graphics. I think like yeah, graphic design is pretty important when we're sending out emails to supporters, when we're sending out physical letters in the mail. Like we just had our physical annual appeal letter go out, and I spent quite a bit of time designing and editing and drafting and creating that. Sometimes I'm designing like email banners for emails that we're sending out. I try and like, yeah, make them pretty, but not too like complex, like pretty easy just to look at. And that's kind of fun. Like I get to like look at pretty nature photos or like photos from like our program. So like I get to see photos from Wild Child or like photos from events that Jessica does, which is great. Sometimes it's drafting proposals and cases for support, which are like these big documents that kind of cover different programs and initiatives and campaigns that we're running. And then there's like all of the written material that kind of goes into that. So I do quite a bit of writing. I write and edit a lot of fundraising emails, make sure that we're like communicating the impact of donors' donations. Yeah, I do a lot of editing. I think I like writing a lot, which is good, but sometimes like yeah, you want to make sure the email is like not too short, but also not too long. So it's a bit
Mhm.
of a balance.
There's that tension between the long email and the short email, right? Like, do
Yeah.
you, and it's funny because our audience, and we've chatted about this before internally, tends to like longer emails than like most organizations. Like the standard email writing practice nowadays is like make it super short and just have the donation link and get them straight to donation. Like our supporters, like in general, tend to like a story, right? They tend to like
Yes.
to hear something more. It's also nice that you mentioned the photos, and like another thing that like working here versus working other places is how much our photos are sourced in-house or like
Oh
just
yeah.
donated to us by like supporters, members, people who are out there, they're doing maybe, a bit of wildlife photography themselves, or they literally just like taking photos and they send them to us and say you can use this. It must kind of be interesting to work with that grassroots side and deal with the drafting in that respect.
Definitely. Yeah. Like you mentioned storytelling, and that's like a huge part of what I do as well. And having photos from our programs and from people like on the ground in the grassroots really helps kind of tell that story properly. I mean, I like looking at a real photo over a Canva photo any day of the week, right? So storytelling definitely something that goes into a lot of the fundraising materials we put out. So I would say like that's kind of the fun in like interesting part. Not that what the rest of I do isn't fun and interesting, but I do a lot of database management. So yeah, I work a lot in Civi, which is our database. That's where like all of our emails kind of come out from. And then I do a lot of data analysis. So when we send out an email, I'm looking to see like who's like clicking through the email, who's opening the email, who's donating because of the email, because that's like a really good sign that what we're saying is resonating with their supporters, what we're saying is interesting to them, they like what we do. Whereas if I have like a low response rate or nobody, if we have a low open rate, which like we talk about, of course, like that's a very common thing to talk about, we know that, oh, this one didn't hit as well. Like people weren't as interested, or this just wasn't the right time to kind of send this stuff out. So that's kind of like the database side of things. I do a lot of collaboration between departments. I would say like development is kind of involved with everything. Like obviously we collaborate quite a lot. We're talking constantly. I collaborate a lot with Chenille, our grassroots membership and engagement coordinator, talking about like how do we reach our members better, talking about the communications we're sending out to them, talking about retention rate for members. I talk a ton to Christina in finance. We do like manual data entry into the database. We're checking in on gifts that were promised. Yesterday we were talking about like BizConnect, the phone. Apparently, when we call people, our caller ID is not saying Sierra Club Canada, And it was at one point. So I was like,
What
what?
is, there's always a technical, this is the thing when you're talking about a database, I don't think most people understand, but like when you get to a certain organizational size, right, this is handled and has to be handled by a database because I mean that's how you keep people's information secure. It's
Yep.
how you just manage having a lot of people on a list, and it's also like an important thing for them so that we can keep records, we can make sure to get their charitable receipt at the end of the year. And like depending on how you get that data, like if somebody goes to an event and tables and gets 100 signups for, email newsletter, right? Um, that's potentially someone manually sitting down and having to, and let's face it, I mean, my penmanship is terrible.
Mm. Oh gosh.
If it weren't for the computer, I wouldn't work in communications because because I
Yep,
can't
me too.
write. So anyway, like, but you're trying to figure out, okay, is that a Q or an R? And then checking to see if the email fails next time, being like, I think that was an R, not a Q, right? Like,
So many
that's the
times.
level. I think that's hours of work. I literally just on the side of somebody goes to an event, somebody gets some emails, and you have to put it in the database.
Yeah. Or like database cleanup. Like it's
Yeah,
not as interesting to talk about, but like I do a lot of the time notice like errors in Civi, like people's names are misspelled or their email address says at gmail.com. And you're like con, and you're like, oh no, that's why they're not getting our emails. Like these kind of things do happen. And so like that's honestly just a background task is like as database manager, it's like I'm just trying to stay on top of it or duplicate contacts in the database, which all organizations struggle with, unfortunately. And it's just a thing that happens, and it's just kind of like constantly managing, like making sure that people's contact information is correct and up to date. We don't have duplicate contacts, so we're not like we have two different phone numbers for people. Well, which one's the actual best phone number, which is the
yeah,
best way to reach them? Updating people's communication preferences is a huge part of what I do and a really important part. Like we want to make sure our supporters are happy with the way we're communicating to them. Some people really prefer emails. Some people get 20,000 emails a day. They say, stop emailing me. Please give me a phone call instead. I like talking to people on the phone. Some people do not want to receive physical mail. Some people, that's the only way they want us to talk to them. So, like keeping that up to date, and talking to supporters. I mean, that's a huge part of what I do. Like, I talk to supporters over the phone. I talk to them over email. I would say that's kind of like one of the better parts of my job. Like, I don't know. I really like talking to people. I'm
yeah.
chatty Cathy. Um,
Well, that's
but
good though. We want that in a fundraising
yeah.
person. Like, and again, I think this is part of the reason why people do turn around and they're like, "Oh, hey, how many people do you have working on this?" I'm like, "No, no, it's pretty much just Taylor." It's like, but you have that ability to do the technical stuff, but also keep your ear to the ground, right? Which I really appreciate in working with you because I think that's a key thing in a grassroots, particularly grassroots organization, right? Because like again, you do want to make sure, and I don't, not to say we always get it right? Like sometimes,
Hmm.
we have somebody on an email list, we send them an email and they say, "Hey, listen, I'd like to receive less emails," and we have to try
Yeah.
and fix it, right? But like it is really key to be able to actually chat to people and to meet them where they're at and get a sense of, what do they think, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a massive part of fundraising too, is like, what do our supporters think? Like, what are people thinking behind the scenes? What do they think of us? What do they think of the things we do? What do they think of the way we use their donations? Like, that's been a really big push on my part this year, and will definitely continue into next year, is just talking to our supporters, communicating with them, learning more about them so we can make sure that they're like satisfied with the work we're doing and they're happy with what how they feel about us. Like I like talking to donors and calling them and to say thank you. Like I think that's a really important thing to do and something, yeah, we've been pushing behind the scenes to kind of get like all board members and volunteers and development and membership, like kind of all of us in on it, because in those really casual conversations, sometimes like you hear the nicest things. Like you learn the nicest things. Like you learn more about our supporters and why they care about our cause and why they like our mission. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's just special. Like that story aspect. Like I think that's one of my favorite parts of the job is connecting with people and learning more about like who they are and what they care about and what they value, especially here at like an environmental organization. We are very mission driven. And I would say each and every one of us is very, very passionate about what we do. And so are our supporters. And it's so nice to like connect over that. Yeah, I don't know, just like those casual little conversations, or even when I sent out like the donor survey earlier this year, like we did get a lot of constructive criticism and constructive feedback, which I was really grateful for, because if people are taking the time to like fill in a
Yeah.
survey, and people take the time to send an email to us, that means they care.
Yeah.
Which is so great, like so lovely and so reaffirming to like feel that at this at Sierra Club Canada. Like, apathy is the emotion we don't want. Like, apathy is something we're not
Yeah.
here for in this environmental movement. But like, people taking the time to write into us, people taking the time to call us, people taking the time to fill out surveys or just interact with us in any sort of way, it means that they care about us. They care about the work we do, and they want us to be better. Like, there is just, yeah, there's no better
Well,
feeling than that.
and we try to get back to everybody. And actually, I say this, and I've got a couple of emails I know that I have to get back to supporters who've written in. And it's just been one of those weeks. We had this week we had the pipeline MOU story drop. We had a couple of other things come up that were like really core. Again, it's like a bit like if you have a big database thing that you need to do, right? Like sometimes that it's just you have to fix that problem, right? And you try to get back to people as soon as you can. And I'm thinking about like the four emails. I know I'm like I have to get back back to those now. But it is one of those things where we just did the comm survey. That's
Mhm.
really interesting because some of the results, and we'll be sharing some in one of the newsletters, but like 90, I think it's 91.7% of people said nature and endangered species are a core part of what interests them in our work. 91.7 also said environmental and social justice is a core part of what interests them in our work. And like our work in sort of broader sense has been to try and bring all these different movements together. And so that's really nice to see that we are getting that, shared interest across different issues, right? But now, as you say, like the real work that's a number, right? Like, so the real work is chatting to people, understanding what aspects of those really appeal, how they see the collaboration, how we can bring those two together. Like, can we do an event that talks about, endangered whale populations, but also talks about the social justice issues around, the marine area and what we can do about like climate change, what we can do about waste in the oceans. There's probably a really interesting, but that comes down to talking to people, and often because we're member focused, that goes in the direction that they kind of decide. And so I'm forgetting my next question actually because we got into this topic, but it's on this. So we do a lot of different things at the club because again, part of our focus is bringing together people across movements. So maybe that's they're working on climate change or biodiversity loss or renewable energy or environmental and social justice or the circular economy or the right to repair or getting kids out into nature. Wild Child, huge part of our work. And like me, you probably deal with a lot of overlap, though, in doing that. And I am wondering what are some of the key challenges you face in communicating with donors or prospective donors or members around that sort of like, because again, it's member-led. Somebody, in Ontario decides to take things one way, somebody in Newfoundland and Labrador might decide to take it another way. And we're
Yep.
we're there to try and figure out what can we do to overlap these things and support, right? So I'm just curious what some of the challenges and maybe opportunities, right, that you see in that are.
Yeah. I think like one of the challenges is, what do we do? I think it's hard to understand what we do because you just listed a bunch of what we do. We do a lot. There's a
We do a
lot
lot.
going on
There's a lot
at
going
Sierra Club Canada. We are very diverse. Like, we don't just do one thing. Like, we're not just focused on nature and endangered species. We're not just focused on wild child. We're not just focused on social justice. We do it all. And I love that about us because, like, I think that's what the environmental movement is. Like you said it, right? Like, we're bringing all those pieces together, which I think is how it should be. we are grassroots, but we're also national. And I think that's like hard for people to conceptualize and visualize. Like, what does that look like? What does it mean when we're in the grassroots and doing the work on the ground? And what does it mean when we want also to like affect policy on a national level and we're doing things at the national level? Yeah, I think that can be a little tricky to elaborate on and to describe for donors. And I get it because like it still trips me up sometimes. Like I have to remind myself and really think about it. And that's, I guess, one of the hard parts of fundraising is, yeah, like
Mm.
communicating that, and yeah, kind of having the language around what we're doing and why we're bringing people together in the environmental movement. I think that's a massive piece of it. I think another piece that we've talked about before as well, is like communicating the difference between being a member and being a donor.
Mhm.
So, like you said, we're member led. So, if you have a membership with Sierra Club Canada, then you have an active part in our community and an active part in deciding where we're going and what
You voted
issues
the
we're focusing
AGM.
on.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
voting at the AGM. That's a massive part, right? Like you're electing our board, and our board is dictating where we go. And if you're a member, you can be part of our committees. Like you can be part of the development committee, you can be part of the communications
Wait,
committee.
are you recruiting Taylor right now?
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes, all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people get confused, and this is something I know we've always talked about and probably will continue to talk about. And Chanel and I will need to maybe do a brainstorming session at some point. But when you're a donor, you're still involved in our community. You're still going to receive updates from us. You're still more than welcome, and we would love for you to volunteer with us.
Mm.
But being a member, it's a bit different. It's more, I don't like the saying, but like skin in the game, if that makes sense. Like you've got more of an active role. You've got more of like,
Well, it's a bit like, if you have a membership at a co-op, right? Like you're kind of a co-op,
right,
right? Like, that doesn't mean that you can go to the co-op and spend money, even if you're not a member, right? You can, and you can support it that way, and you get something out of it, right? Like, I hope anyway. But if you're a member, you actually also have a deciding interest in what direction the organization takes, which can
right.
be sort of an added benefit, right? Like,
Yeah,
and there
instead
are
of
two
just
different
supporting.
pages for that. Like there's a membership page and a donation page. I'll just make that point while we're here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, I think those are some of the challenges about like talking about what we do and kind of communicating who we are to our members and to our donors. But again, like I said, like I like the fact that we're grassroots and national. Like I think that's our strength really. So I wouldn't say it's like a massive issue. It's just like making sure that we're being clear in communicating that to our donors, to our supporters, so people understand a bit more.
Well, and I'm even just thinking about that right now because I cannot recount the number of times I've heard people say, I don't like the big NGOs. I don't like, and I have a lot of respect for the work other big national NGOs work. I don't like the big NGOs. They're not connected to the ground. They don't really talk to communities. They come in and they have this big, plan for how things are going to be. And then on the other hand, the number of people who've said, oh, there's all these local initiatives to try and make change, but we're not chatting to each other. Like, how do I even make change in my community? Because I don't know what the path is. Well, that's the benefit of having a national organization with a grassroots focus, right? Because we can actually go and we can go to another NGO at the national level and say, hey, we have a grassroots team over here working on this. Seems like they could do with overlap with your national campaign that you're doing. Let's get you in the room together chatting. Oh, listen, there's this massive national movement that's about to start up. But there's something wrong here. This isn't the same as the thing we hear on the ground. And I can't even recount to you, again, the number of times I've been in that inter-organizational meeting and I've been like, sorry, I think that the idea of where you want to go with this, very well meaning, but this is not the way people talk about this in that community. And the only reason we know that is we're both, right? And the
Yeah.
only reason we can help, like bring the environmental again movement together and focus the efforts is because we're both. And if we were just one or the other, or we said to ourselves, well, we're getting rid of the grassroots component, we're checking it out, we're just going with national or vice versa, we wouldn't be as strong, and we
Hmm.
wouldn't be filling that void, because that is a real void. And it's funny that like it is hard for people to understand, I think, conceptually why that structure is the way it is. Um, but at the same time, if you think about it in terms of the common complaints you get about the environmental movement, one way or the other, it's too hyper focused on local issues and nobody's chatting to each other, everybody's fighting. Or, it's too national and it's too big plan and nobody's listening to the communities on the ground. Well, that's the void we fill, right?
Yeah.
That's the reason we're there. And I think most of our members that I chat to really do get that, right? Like they seem to have like a good conception of why that's important. And it is unique. I don't know of another organization that does that, honestly. There are organizations that have chapters. I don't know of another organization that does that sort of work in the same way.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, next, question is on that note, what inspires you to keep going?
Oh, good question. I think like integral to who I am is like connection to other people. Like I really do value relationships above all else. I like hearing about people. I like hearing their stories. I like connecting to them. I think in these divided times that we kind of live in, there's a real sense of otherness. There's a real sense of like it's us versus them, which
Mm,
I understand why we're here. I totally get that. But now it's like, well, what is the same? Like, what commonalities do we have? What kind of common ground do we have? And I think another part of who I am is I love food. I am really, really passionate about eating, about cooking, about food. But I think that's because for me, food is community. Like that's my tie into community. And that's how I've connected with people all across my life. Like growing up, food was really, really important to my family. And my parents used to like host these big supper parties and like everybody used to come and it just was a really good like place to like be in and to see like growing up. Like it definitely was super impactful, like sitting at the adults table and getting to like be involved in all these adult conversations and eating really great food and connecting over our shared love of food. And I mean, everybody's got to eat, right? So
yeah.
food is something that kind of connects us all. I mean, a lot of us can really appreciate a good cup of coffee. So weirdly, what inspires me to keep going is food, I guess. But yeah, community and I think connection to other people and storytelling, like sharing kind of our stories and stuff.
No, I hear you on food and also on community and the other stuff, but I hear you on food. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do anything without coffee, which I know is also threatened by climate change. So there's a whole
Mm,
interesting overlap there, right? But it's true. Like, yeah, it brings together community in a way. I mean, I remember even talking, we had on the podcast a cooperative garden in Montreal, and we were chatting about like how food was bringing this community together and getting them out, doing that. Um, it's not food, but the Let's Plant initiative, right? Like
yeah.
planting wildflowers across Canada. I think this is another aspect of our work that is sometimes hard to understand. Like, why are we engaged on climate change and then also planting wildflowers across Canada? And I think the reason why is if you want to break outside that climate bubble of people who normally chat about it and actually
Mm,
talk of communities, sometimes the way in isn't to go do the presentation on climate change. Sometimes the way in is to go plant wildflowers
yeah.
and get the community together first and then start chatting to people, right?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, Wild Child, for instance, right, is a good example of this too. There's all these concerns these days about AI and the impact it's having actually even on children's brains and on adults' brains, quite frankly. We actually just finished up an interview where we were chatting about AI's impact on like dependency and everything, and like the value now of getting children out in nature. The way I grew up, I hate to say it, but like the way I grew up and going out and actually exploring and enjoying it, and the value to the future community that's going to take place as a result is really there. So on that note, if you had advice for young people entering the development or fundraising sector of work, what would it be?
Ooh. Hmm. That's a good question. I think think it is important that you have passion for the organization or the cause you're working for. I think when it comes to fundraising, it comes across like when you're being passionate, it comes across as genuine. And I think it helps kind of connect people more to your mission when you're like, this is actually really cool, guys. um, Having that passion and yeah, just kind of having that spark and enthusiasm for the work you do. Yeah, fundraising is definitely like it can be a tricky sector, I would say. Like, there's definitely a lot of burnout for sure in the fundraising sector, and I totally understand why. I mean, I'm kind of new here, kind of new to this fundraising world. So I'm definitely still in like a learning stage, but I also like really want to hold on to my light, if that makes sense. Like I really want to keep the enthusiasm and keep the
Yeah.
passion for the work because I think that's what in the end will drive me and encourage me to keep going. And I mean, you don't have to go to school for fundraising to get into the development and fundraising sector. Like that's not what I went to school for. But I like Sierra Club Canada, and it just so worked out that I ended up here. And like it felt like a very natural fit for me. Like this made sense as I was kind of learning more and more about what fundraising looks like and what fundraising kind of looks like here specifically. So yeah, I mean, try it. Like if you're curious about it, you're interested in it, I would never dissuade someone from getting into it. I think it's a really great field to be in and I think it's a lot of fun. So if you're interested, definitely get into it and see how it goes, I guess.
And maybe it's more advice to employers then, right? Like, should they be
Hmm.
keeping trying to keep the light on in their fundraising person? And
Trying, yes. Which, you know what? Gretchen does an excellent job. I haven't even talked about Gretchen this whole time, but yes, Gretchen, our executive director, is one of the best people I've ever worked with. I mean, I love working with Gretchen, and she's someone that, yeah, has a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of passion for this work. And that lends itself to me, right? Like, if I was working for someone who was "Mm," like grumpy and didn't want to be here and didn't really care about the work that was going on, that would infect me probably. Like that would
oh
make me like, oh, well, why should I care about the work I'm doing? Why should I be enthusiastic if my manager isn't, if our executive director, the person who's leading us, isn't? But luckily, that is not the case with Gretchen. So,
no, but that's so true, right? Like it's the working environment that you're in and whether or not it's supportive that makes a huge
yeah,
I mean, I'm just happy about the whole team, right? Like there's so many people with passion and you know, again, they may be going off on different projects sometimes that I are different to mine, but yeah, I couldn't work somewhere and I still love that aspect of the communications industry too, is like yeah, it's a bit like a kitchen. You can work in the back door and say, "Hi, I'm willing to scrub dishes," and you know, like okay,
yeah,
you know, and then in 4 years be a line cook, right? Like
yeah,
it's not, or even sooner, right? Be in a year, be working on the line. It's not it's not a closed off industry either, which is good. But it does come down to who you're working with. Do they take what they're doing professionally? You know, is it a supportive team? And that,
yeah.
you know, I'm very grateful. If you could say one thing to people this Giving Tuesday, this is coming out a little bit earlier for people who are on our emailing list, but it's Giving Tuesday when it's going to be on the podcast version. If you could say one thing to people, what would it be?
I guess get involved. I mean, Giving Tuesday is not just about donating, it's also about like volunteering your time. And
Yeah.
so, if donating is not something that's on the table for you financially, are you able to give your time instead? I mean, we would love to have you volunteer with us. We've got a really passionate volunteer team. But if you can't, and that's a valid reality for some people, send this to someone who can. Like I think the big thing is like spreading the word and like we've talked about this, haha, talking about talking, but we've talked about this many times. This is in every single one of your newsletters. This is something I stand on, is talking about climate change, talking about the issues you're passionate about is the most powerful thing you can do. It doesn't matter. Like it is the most powerful thing you can do. So share this podcast with someone else, tell your dad that you were listening to this podcast and oh, this was so interesting. Like having these conversations is actually where the real change happens. So yeah.
And it's where fundraising, like the best fundraising comes from, right? Like too, is
Yep.
like somebody tells somebody else, I think people don't realize this. They think like it's, like, but actually, yeah, when we talk about all the comms I create or anything like that, most of the time when people hear about the club, and this comes up in the communication survey, it's because somebody maybe saw that material, but then went and talked to somebody else about it, right? And
Nice.
so it really is valuable. I think people, if you're listening, hopefully spread a little bit of word about us this Giving Tuesday. And how can people find out more if they want to either spread the word or donate?
Yeah, definitely check out our website. The donate button is like right there in the right corner, I'm pretty sure. Big
Pretty
button.
hard to miss.
So if you, what?
It's pretty hard to miss.
It's hard to miss. I would think so, but you never know. Like there are a lot of really great things on the website, so it is easy to get distracted.
Yeah.
But yeah, have a poke around. Like we've got all of our programs and campaigns like listed out there. If you're not signed up for the newsletter, I would highly recommend signing up for the newsletter. Donate if you're feeling it. Like if you like the work we do and you want to support us, please donate to us. We are yeah, a charity, like you said. And without donations and without the support from our donors, we cannot do the work we do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and also talk to me. I
Yeah.
monitor a few different inboxes, but if people want to like reach out to me directly, they can. Development at sierraclub.ca. I'm in my inbox all the time, and honestly, this is weird, but I like getting emails. Like I said, like it's super great when people write in because I know it means they care, like they actually took the time to talk, and that means they want to chat, they want to see more, they want to learn more. So yeah, feel free to shoot me an email and I'd be happy to talk to you about things further.
That's great, Taylor. And if you do happen to sign up for the newsletter too, know for the first few months to a year, we're actually trying not to send you donation asks as much as possible. We just want you to get the content, get to know it, and get to know us. And then after those few months or a year have passed, then again, like we're in it to we need to fundraise. But
Yep.
at that point, hopefully you will have figured out whether or not you want to support that or not. So do get in contact with us about your comms preferences too, if you have any concerns. And there's development at sierraclub.ca is your email, and
Yep.
communications at sierraclub.ca is mine. And if I don't get back to you in the first couple of days, trust me, I am trying to get there as fast as I can. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you again, Taylor. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries, Connor. This was really lovely. So thanks, yeah, for having me on and chatting with me.
Do spread the word. Share this podcast. Let other people know about Sierra Club Canada. If you'd like to check out more about Sierra Club Canada, go to sierraclub.ca. A quick note, there are three different Sierra Clubs. There's Sierra Club BC, there's Sierra Club Canada, and there's Sierra Club United States. Now, Sierra Club United States, Sierra Club Canada, and Sierra Club BC are all separate organizations. We all have separate financial structures, boards, incorporation, management, staff. And as a result, if you donate to one, you're not donating to all three. So make sure if you're interested in us, sierraclub.ca, you can find the others by Googling. And they're both doing really cool work as well. Sierra Club US actually just launched a new lawsuit against the Trump administration because they refused to release potential records that might show links between big polluters and the Department of Efficiency or DOGE that Elon Musk is running. They're both doing cool work too. You should check out. But sierraclub.ca if you're interested in us. And we do have supporters who are actually located in BC and support us nationally on our national work as well. And once again, big thanks to the Harbinger Media Network who help us get this podcast out, and a big thanks to CKUT Radio as well in Montreal, 90.3 FM. You should check them out as well. And finally, a huge thank you to you, our supporters. We can't do anything we do without you, so we really appreciate it and wishing you all a very happy Giving Tuesday.